So what contributes to these bone stress injuries and how do they happen, okay? From an orthopedic side of things, it's actually kind of obvious, right? So training load, too much, training intensity, too hard, training frequency, doing too much, right? So if you're running 5 days a week or 7 days a week, maybe you run every single day, okay? Maybe you're only running 2 days a week, it's a little bit nicer. But if your training frequency is really high, then that's gonna put a lot of load on the bone, not a lot of rest associated with that. And then the training surface, are you on treadmills all the time? Are you on gravel trails? Are you on the dirt? Or are you on concrete and asphalt, right? And so all that kind of plays into it, all right? From a hormonal side of things, this is actually where things get really interesting. And this is often the overlooked component of treating these injuries is all the stuff that's not running. So that's all the running stuff. This is all the stuff that kind of happens, in and around running, okay? Low energy availability, which is fancy talk for not eating enough, not getting enough calories, not fueling properly, not resting enough. So if you're training really hard, you're putting a lot of stress on the system, on the bones, and then you're also not really eating enough and not resting, your body has no fuel to actually recover. So you're just draining more than you're filling, right? So sometimes people will stop running, but they won't address any of this stuff, and it just kind of stagnates, all right? With or without disordered eating. So this means that you don't have to be anorexic, you don't have to be bulimic to have any sort of a fueling problem as it relates to this, okay? Low bone mineral density related to osteoporosis, right? So not just people with osteoporosis are gonna get something like this. If you're calcium or vitamin D deficient, that's gonna become very relevant. So when I'm working with someone who has a bone stress injury, I'm quickly sending them for blood work to say, okay, let's see what your calcium levels are, let's see what your vitamin D levels are, and let's make sure that if there's any deficiencies in those, that you're supplementing that, because that's actually gonna help heal the bone, right? And then stress, if you have a really stressful job, okay, that's gonna contribute to the hormonal balance in your body, so it's gonna be harder to recover. And then if you have poor sleep, poor recovery, that kind of goes without saying that you're not really gonna recover very well. So if you're constantly on the gas, you're running really hard outside all the time, and you're also not fueling correctly, and maybe you have some stuff going on like this with calcium and vitamin D deficiencies, the scene is set. So going back to what I was talking about earlier with my 75 hard program was I was outside on my feet every day. That was part of the program, outside on my feet. I was on concrete, walking or running, okay? So we're talking about load, intensity, frequency, and surface. Those are strikes against me in all of those, right? And then from a hormonal standpoint, the diet was part of the program. So I was eating less, okay? I'm lactose intolerant, so I avoid dairy. So I never got my calcium tested, but my suspicion was that I was calcium deficient in some capacity. I don't eat dairy, okay? I was stressed because I was building a business. I was living by myself. I was doing all the cooking, cleaning, and all that kind of stuff on my own. So I was doing a lot, and I had to wake up really early in order to get all these things done in the program. So I wasn't really sleeping very well, and my recovery was pretty poor. So everything was set up for me to get something like this, right? But I didn't even realize it. I was like, I'm just training. I'm pushing really hard. Like, I want to complete this task that I set out for myself, right? So, but the scene was kind of set.